regarding where we were and complexions in the community, which helped us to disassociate from one another and discourage inclusion and community progress. When we got to integration, the possible decline and demise of the unity of the Black community, as it seems that we have done less for ourselves and for our communities as we sought to assimilate with the White is Right program. When I was coming along in the 60s, there were the discussions between good and bad Negro, leadership issues. As we move now toward embracing quote unquote multiculturalism, which would expand us to re-include and not disregard all aspects of ourselves, would you say that Black conservatism is moving toward extinction, or are we evolving towards something else?
It's a great question. You know, sort of where's the future in Black conservatism if we're moving towards greater inclusiveness as a politics, as a culture? I'm suggesting that Black conservatism is growing, not that it's declining and that it's going to be distinct at any particular moment in the near future. And here's the reason why. There are an increasing number of African Americans who are economically viable participants in this capitalist economy, this global capitalist economy. The more stuff they have, the more things they have to conserve, the more fiscally conservative you will see Black folks become. Colin Powell talks about this, and I talk about it in the book. He fancies himself a social conservative, but a social liberal, but a fiscal conservative. He says, I'm a fiscal conservative with a social conscience. That seems to be, at least to me, the model that we see among those folks who are finding Black conservatism more attractive. It is a fiscal conservative policy coupled with a social conscience, however you want to define that. At the same time, and here's the interesting thing, there are working class Black people who are fiscally liberal but socially conservative and increasingly socially conservative, opposing gay marriage and gay rights, civil unions, and so on and so forth, promoting a discourse of family values rooted in Black Christian teaching, right? And I'm thinking here of, like, you know, Bishop T.D. Jakes, prominent Republican, right, who fits into that category, but he's not alone. There are a number of other sort of social conservatives and fiscal liberals. And so I guess what I'm suggesting is that Black conservatism is sort of taking on new forms every day. And if you go on the internet, you'll find that there are people, young people, who are declaring themselves conservative, in part because they want to view themselves as just simply independent. They're no longer part of any particular political tradition, and so they're choosing to be loosely described as conservative. But the good part in all of this, and this is the upside, is that I'd like to think that in the 21st century, all of us are becoming post-partisan in our politics, right? And what I mean by that is we don't have strong fidelity to political parties and political party platforms, that we're becoming much more issue sensitive, and that our politics, we may be conservative on one issue, liberal on another one, liberal on a third, conservative on a fourth. It doesn't map on neatly to the prevailing political party platforms, but it's a good thing because at least our politics are now representative of what we think and who we are. And at some point, we will see the rise of a reconfigured political party, let's hope, that takes the best of these multiple traditions. But you have to begin by, again, having the courage to reach across the ideological divide and begin to pick at some of the best of that other tradition.
Fortunately, I had two questions because you just answered my first one, which was how you were addressing the alignment of an ideology that was either conservative or liberal that didn't necessarily map onto the parties. And I think that you just beautifully explained that. But in your throwaway line of Condoleezza Rice being the most powerful African-American woman as a conservative, in my own mind, I've been thinking in different terms, and I think of her as perhaps exceedingly powerful in the political arena. But a striking historical fact that I present in my own research and lectures is the fact that the wealthiest woman on the face of the earth right now is Oprah Winfrey. And then in terms of economic power, okay, when Sister Oprah had more money than the Queen of England, I said to myself, hey, that is saying something when a slave descendant who is a liberal slave descendant reflects that kind of economic power. And I know that you were aware of the impact that she's had in South Africa. And so could you address the issue of power both in political and economic terms when you've got such powerful sisters that in this instance represent different political ideologies?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, there is a sense in which you have sort of dueling powers here, and the irony, of course, is that the conservative powerhouse isn't the financial powerhouse, right? Oprah is the liberal. So it's the liberal ideology that seems to have the financial backing here. And there's a sort of delicious irony in that. What are we to make of that, though? One point that we should take away from this sort of duality here is that, first of all, neither one of these women represent the ideological poles, right? In other words, one gets the sense that Oprah Winfrey is perhaps not as fiscally liberal as a sort of prototypical liberal might be, right? She may very well be fiscally conservative. I have no idea, but I just get the sense that, with that degree of business acumen, she cannot be sloppy with her finances. The other thing to keep in mind is with respect to Condoleezza Rice, she's not nearly as conservative as we'd like to think, based upon our public perceptions of her. I mean, you don't grow up in Birmingham, Alabama, in the 60s, and come out of that experience without being affected somewhat profoundly by the experience of Bull O'Connor and the church bombings. Turns out she actually knew one of the girls that was killed in a church bombing. Condoleezza's father, of course, was a black studies professor at University of Denver, and he pioneered a program that brought leading black leaders of the 60s and 70s to the University of Denver to lecture. And then he would always host a dinner at his house, and Condoleezza was present at these dinners. One of the close family friends of the Rices was none other than Stokely Carmichael, leader of the Black Power movement. So there are these moments in the development of Condoleezza Rice as a person that suggest that she gets it on some basic level. Condoleezza Rice would later go on to declare her support for affirmative action publicly. She was asked point blank, do you believe in affirmative action? She said, yes, we need all the help we can get. Not the most sophisticated response, doesn't sound like a Bush soundbite. Right? So in other words, Condoleezza Rice is complex as well. A complex mix of both conservative ideology, certainly when it comes to foreign policy matters, but also liberal ideology, right? Social justice matters. And Oprah Winfrey, I suspect, is also a more complicated individual, complex political animal, right? And what I would say is that what we should take away from both of these sisters is that they both represent possibilities for empowerment. And that there's no reason why we should deify Oprah and demonize Condoleezza. We should hold them both up as models for empowerment. Okay. Thanks. All right, it's a wrap.